Hi guys, welcome to another episode of the 10x Developer Podcast. So last week made it 30 weeks of um last week made it 30 weeks of us doing this podcast. That was like the 30th episode of the 10x Developer Podcast. So today is the 31st episode, and I'm so happy to be here. And I hope you are too, Neil.
Yeah, hey man. The view is not. Oh yeah, you're changing it. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So good to be back. We have lots of interesting stuff happening.
Yep. Yeah.
New model releases, and there is one interesting research paper that
So you want to
I'm
go
very.
first? I think you have.
Yeah. There are also a couple of model releases, and there is one interesting research paper that we're going to talk about today. I
Yeah.
feel like that's very close to my heart. I mean, I like how we should be thinking about software engineering. But before we get there, I think we should talk about some sort of enterprise partnership news here. So
Okay.
OpenAI and AWS, AWS Forge. I don't know, what is AWS Forge? I don't know. But anyway, so OpenAI partnered with AWS. It's around $38 billion
Oh.
cloud partnership. It might be, if I could be wrong though, but it might be one of those biggest partnership. One thing about OpenAI, I feel like, is that they're really good at getting this partnership deals. But
Yeah, they
anyway, this is
always.
right. They're all over the place. NVIDIA, Microsoft, Oracle.
Yeah,
I mean, excellent. It's pretty impressive to see this kind of partnerships happening. Anyway,
yeah.
so this is a multi-year, $38 billion strategic partnership for OpenAIs. So obviously the objective is for OpenAI to tap into AWS infrastructure.
Hmm.
So this is going to be for spans around 7 years. I think that's the duration of this partnership is. That gives OpenAI access to hundreds of thousands of NVIDIA, right? That's the spice they're going for, right? That's the spice everybody's looking for NVIDIA GPUs. So this is going to allow them to scale their workloads. So OpenAI, AWS has this infrastructure called, I mean, most of our community might know, our audience might know, something called Bedrock. So for you, that means is if you're an enterprise client or you want to use sort of OpenAI models without sort of going through the ChatGPT free that route, you can now tap into AWS Bedrock. It was always there, but AWS Bedrock to use some of the GPT models. So that to me sort of kind of impressive. We talked about this around Anthropic also, right? So most of these model providers are obviously hitting very limits of how much GPUs they have. So that's how they are building this partnership with the cloud providers. Sometimes it might make sense for you as a company to use AWS Bedrock to get more reliable, more high throughput performance from these models.
That's cool. That's very, very interesting. I think it's also very interesting how they do. I don't know because I know they have with Nvidia, so and they're also doing with these guys again. I mean, how do they always do these things, right? How do they
Right,
always do this?
it's very impressive. Now, this is interesting.
Yeah.
There was an interview that actually not didn't show up in our feed. There was a very interesting interview from with Satya, Sam, and someone was doing this interview, like a three-way podcast uh, about AI and obviously the Microsoft OpenAI deal, where you know this, right? I mean,
Yeah.
OpenAI is trying to raise up to $1 trillion to build data centers, and so trillion. This is some
Yeah.
big numbers. But there was one interesting fact that Satya shared that was very interesting. According to him, GPUs are not the issue, even though that's what we thought initially, right? We thought
Yeah.
that getting hold of GPUs is becoming hard. But
Yeah.
his comment was, which sort of was interesting, is saying we have tons of GPUs already. They're collecting dust. But the problem is we don't have enough power infrastructure to plug them in.
Yeah.
So the electricity, the energy is becoming sort of the bottleneck here, which I thought
Yeah.
was sort of interesting.
So I think it's also interesting because I mean Nvidia also is trying to. I was having a conversation with someone yesterday, and he was telling me how Nvidia is trying to, the DGX, the DGX. device that they released, and then all
I
those things.
want that for Christmas, man.
Right?
Don't
Yeah.
worry.
He was telling me how he wants to buy it because he has this business idea and he's thinking, oh, he's going to use it to build this solution for businesses here,
Mm.
for people in East Africa, right? And it's such an interesting thing. So I think even Nvidia is also trying to sort of like democratize this GPU so that it can get into the hands of ordinary people and whatnot. So, but then I think there's also another news that we did not cover that is also very interesting. There's this news that um, Google and Apple went in partnership. So Siri is going to get a brain. I think that's how the headline read. Siri is going to get a brain with Google partnership. I'm not
Interesting.
sure. Yeah, but then it's sort of like saying that, oh, Google AI sort of is going to be an AI behind Siri. But then people on Twitter now came up with this meme that says Google is paying Apple. I don't know how many millions of dollars they're paying Apple
Oh,
yearly
I
to
saw
be
that.
the
I
default
saw that.
device on iOS, and then they are also right. So they are paying them to be the guys on behind Siri, and it's
Mm.
interesting to see how these partnerships are going,
Yeah.
right? But I guess it's also like a win-win situation for most of them. So they are gaining, and then these guys are also like gaining
And
from it.
they're after the data also, right? I mean, it's uh, uh, now tapping into phone and everybody's search on the phone would be a huge data set for these models.
Yeah,
I,
definitely.
for some reason, thought that Anthropic is positioned correctly to do that because partner Apple already has a partnership with Anthropic for
Yeah,
Xcode. I think the Xcode is powered by Claude models
yeah.
for AI assistant coding. I thought Anthropic was farther ahead in partnership, but it's interesting.
Yeah. I was also thinking, I was even thinking that Anthropic is, going to go full Apple and then become the guys. But I think they have sort of like changed their model slightly a little bit, to just focus on developer and then technical stuff. I think that's what they've done, and I think it's good for them, to be very honest. I mean, instead of chasing the whole AI, be the guy that is very good technical wise, right? That's a huge gap, and I think there will be a good market there. Right. So here says Gemini API by Google DeepMind. So now has what they call structured output and file search. So they now include like native support for structured output example, which is JSON output, and
Mm,
it has also launched this new file search tool for developer app. This means that you can now enforce strict schemas, so the model always return well prepared JSON file for you, and it grounds the response in your own field data rather than just letting the model hallucinate and then just give you what they think freely. So this output allows you to have like a refined, very properly refined like response schema in JSON schema that can
mm.
help you. I think this is for Gemini API. So when you make an API call, you can get like well structured, um, what's it called, JSON as a response anytime
Yeah,
you do this thing.
it it feels they're sort of catching up. This has been around for a while
Yeah,
in the OpenAI space.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because I know OpenAI at some point, even for their video record, there was. I mean, I know I used to when I want to do like video, I used to do like just. There was a time JSON
Yeah.
prompting, and we talked about it here and all those things. So JSON has been like a thing on ChatGPT. I wonder why they are just doing it here on their. But
Yeah, which
anyways,
was sort of interesting because I do use Gemini, and I believe in one of our orchestrator we are using response format. So maybe they
yeah,
made the model much more, I mean, compliant in terms of kind of strictly following that pattern.
yeah. Also
Is
following,
Gemini 3 is coming, right? Soon?
yeah, Gemini 3 is coming. Yeah, I have that. I think that's the story I
Okay.
want to quickly talk about, right?
Okay. Go. Okay.
I think in preparation for Gemini 3, they have this thing they call them. So they've integrated Google Workspace. I think this is going to be a game changer for them. So they upgraded deep research so that you can now integrate your core workspace apps. So what this means is that in your deep research, you can now say, oh, use my email as context, right? So it can now take context from your email, it can take context from your Google Docs, from your Google Slide. And I think this is going to be killer for mostly enterprise solutions, right? Because they can now like integrate all the things that they've been doing. I mean, I can see people in consulting making a lot of using this a lot, right? So
Yeah.
because if they have been using all these they've been using all these workspaces, all these tools before now. All they need to do is just like plug it into their AI, and then they can easily like just make their searches and then get the
Yeah.
context properly defined within what they've been doing already in their works, in their ecosystem. So
Yeah.
now I think it's coming with Gemini 3. Gemini 3 is not yet out, but all these releases are like leading up to Gemini 3,
Yeah. I
right?
think it's later this month or something. I
Yeah, I think
believe
it's later
that
this month.
are
I think it's
yeah.
towards the end of the month. Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
they make this release. This sounds very interesting. So your deep research can now go into Drive, Chat, Web, multi-step research plan. You can even like plan it to say, oh, okay, get this particular thing from Gmail, get this particular one from my Google Drive. And then you can
Mm,
plug in even chat logs from your
mm,
Google Chat, right? So you can say, oh, this
mm,
is what I'm talking with. This conversation I'm having in the lounge, and I want you to research deeply, into this conversation using this email we've generated before, and then it's going to use all those things as context. And I think it's going to be a game changer. And I also think they made it available via API. So you can also build around this thing.
yeah. No,
So
I mean
yeah,
they should. I mean they have control over all of these assets. So
yeah,
if anyone can really build this, I mean, this is where I think other model providers have to struggle. For OpenAI,
yeah,
they have to force people to connect there. We can what you're saying, you can do that with ChatGPT and others as well, because you can connect
yeah.
your Google Drive with Anthropic as well, and they will do the
Yeah,
deep search.
which also is a very interesting phenomenon. I mean, I saw some guys arguing online that OpenAI is fighting with Google, but Google is not fighting with OpenAI, right? Because
Right.
they they could have simply said, "Oh, you lose access to all our systems, right? You don't plug
Mhm.
in, you don't add, how you add device,
Yeah.
add things to ChatGPT. You can add your whole Google
Right.
Drive. I can add my whole drive, and then it
Yeah.
gets information
Yeah.
from there."
That's a challenge they have to manage somehow. That's why they are going through that. Everybody's trying to go through the browser route, right? Uh, I haven't opened my Comet browser last we spoke, so
Yeah.
it's a difficult challenge. It's a very
Have you
difficult
used it
challenge.
since then? Have
Have
you
you
used the
used what?
browser since then? Atom browser, the
Uh,
browser from ChatGPT, OpenAI. Have you used it again
Comet,
since
right?
that?
They call it Comet, or what is it?
No, Comet is for perplexity. So
Oh,
theirs is
I did. What is it? It's Atlas. Atlas. Yeah, yeah.
Atlas. Sorry,
Uh,
Atlas. Yeah,
Atlas. Yeah. No, no. I mean, I played with it last week, I think, or week when they launched for the podcast, so
yeah,
that I can say something concrete about it.
yeah,
No, I mean it's not baked into my muscle memory. I mean, I need a killer app, right? Why should I use it?
yeah,
And now
yeah,
this is interesting though. Speaking of these browsers, I mean, there are going to be lots of lawsuits coming in. I think Amazon is suing Perplexity for this because they are, Perplexity browser, whatever the name is, Comet. They have this sort of agentic interface that allows you to sort of shop for you, an agent that will
yeah,
shop for you in Amazon, right?
yeah.
So Amazon is suing Perplexity for that because it's actually violating some of their terms and agreement, because essentially they're scripting to do shopping in Amazon, which is not allowed.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
so going
interesting.
back to what you said about Google and OpenAI, right? I mean, some of this platforms going to push back, saying if Amazon says, "Sorry, you
Yeah,
cannot use your agents to scan its script," because Amazon is in the right spot to build a shopping agent.
yeah,
So So these browsers have to. What I'm trying to get at is the browsers have to find a killer app for me. I mean, if there's
Yeah,
something that really takes tons of time for me to do by browsing and search. I mean, they always have this cliche example of booking a flight and booking a trip. Maybe
yeah.
that's it. Maybe next time if I plan summer vacation, I will probably use some of this browser to see and compare.
You see,
But for my
yeah,
day-to-day use, I don't know, man. I
yeah. You don't book. You
but
don't go
I
on
I'm
vacation
not a
every
sample.
day.
I'm not a sample size. I'm pretty sure there are other people who have also interesting use cases. I don't.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah. I
moving on to the
think.
next story.
Yeah, just one last thing on that. So
Sure.
today, while I was researching, doing deep research on some of the topics. So, for example, this topic I just read, which is the one on Google, right? Doing this thing. So I copied the link to the blog, which is what I do every other week. I copied the link to the blog, and then I paste it in ChatGPT. I say, "Oh, read this blog and do a deep research on it, and tell me do like a summary of this news for me." And then today it kept on telling me, all the links from Google blogs, it's all reject. It told me I can't reach these websites, right? Which I found very interesting. I mean, it wasn't happening last week. Last week I did, that was typically what I did last week. But then today it told me I can't read these websites. What I can do is to research the web on this news for you. So I think some of these blogs are
No.
probably
So
saying,
that could be a couple of things. Uh, I see that too. I always interpret that as a maybe that site has a policy that you cannot scan robots can,
okay.
every sites have this file called robots.txt where
Yeah,
you essentially provide what all is allowed to do, what all things could be automated by Google or search engines.
yeah,
uh, Ideally a good citizen of the internet should respect that. Okay,
yeah.
if they see the robots say not to parse, they will not. I always assume that Chat GPT sort of recognizes that. On the
Oh,
Perplexity, on the other hand, doesn't, because there was another case against them too. They bypass all this because they use reverse proxy to bypass all this. It's scanning
oh.
this. Yeah, there's lots of nasty stuff going on here. But you could be right though. But Google has no authority on any random blog to publish to stop ChatGPT. But I don't
I
know.
mean, it's their own blog, so it's Google blog, not not a
Okay,
random
okay.
blog, right? Yeah,
Then I'm
it's
I'm
the
I'm
Google blog.
90% sure it's a robots.txt file that is stopping them or something.
Oh, okay, okay,
All right. So
right.
my next story is from Meta. Meta and Hugging Face. Hugging Face is a place for all ML and AI, right? It's an open source site to find all exciting research and models out there. They are partnering with something they're calling an OpenEnv for AI agents. Now, this is interesting. This is truly a problem. So right now we have lots of frameworks that allows us to build AI agents, right? We have
Yeah,
ADK, lots of ADKs out there. Now, the security concerns with agents are, if I run the agents and one of the common characteristic of AI agents is that they have access to tools, right? And tools
yeah,
could be file search, like you said. Tools could be browsing the internet, right? So most of the
yeah,
organizations are really concerned about deploying AI agents because they are not sure whether this AI agent is going to go in and start scanning all the stuff, right? So what's the right way to limit their process?
mm,
Like Claude CLI, Claude Code has done a really good job about this, right? Only out of the box, Claude has only 4 or 5 commands they have access to. For every other command, it actually asks for your permission. Hey, I'm gonna do a ls on this directory. Do you give me permission, right? That's why you know what
yeah,
this agent is doing, right? So, but there
yeah,
is no common standard for this. So the OpenEnv is trying to solve that problem. So imagine an environment where um, so you define what is possible, right? You define what tools, APIs, and data that an agent has access to in a very standard mechanism. That's what
Yeah.
OpenEnv specification is allowed to do. So this gives you exactly which tools and APIs an agent can use. Sandbox execution, on the other hand, that means you that so essentially like a Docker, right? So the best way to describe this is a Docker for AI agents, which has a
Yeah.
clear semantics and separation defined. So that way you can safely deploy these agents and not worry about security and privacy.
Oh.
And building a standard around this, and also this also include yes, we should. This also include what do you call is that sort of for research and engineer shared language for post training, right? So this is a really good initiative to kind of figure out what standard environment for AI agents looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really interesting though. Really interesting. I mean, like I said, like we always talk here, right? Say on this podcast, with time um we are going to like understand how to regulate some of these things and what the best practices are going to be. So I guess that's probably what the next 4 or 5 years is going to be about, you know,
Yeah,
understanding, regulating, setting out like best practices, and then
yeah, and then
saying, oh, this the way.
they have tons of examples also in Hugging Face right now, where you can kind of download these environments, you can play with it, you can safely train, test, share the environment. I mean, this is just take it
Yeah,
to the next level, right? I mean, now we have a
yeah,
very standard way to share our AI agents with others.
yeah. I think that's pretty interesting. All right, just a
Mhm.
quick commercial break. I can see that there are about 15 people joining us on Twitter. So sad we can't communicate directly with you. So, but if you can drop a comment on Twitter, we really love that. So there are about 15 people currently right now watching us on Twitter. So just on Twitter, by the way. So I haven't checked those watching on LinkedIn, but no matter where you're watching us from, please do kindly drop a comment. Um, and yeah, so we can see you. Thank you. Right. So the next story I want to talk about here is um, is Aardvark. I mean, I think you mentioned it earlier, right? Aardvark, which is GPT-5 based AI security research assistant. So this is an agentic security researcher powered by GPT-5, and it is designed to analyze code base, build threat models, detect vulnerabilities, and even generate patches. It is currently in private beta, and this is like the most interesting part. It is free for open source projects, right? So um, it's I think it's a very interesting one because issue of security has been very popular, especially since the rise of AI. Everybody has been saying one or two things about security. I was at an event with very senior engineers here in Nigeria, guys that work in fintech, and then they shared a lot of concerns about how the work that they do in the engineering that they do, which is like in fintech, and how they can't really use AI the way they want to use it because there are some policies that is against it and all those things. So, right, so this model leverages GPT-5 capabilities, plus it has like integrations, integration with tools like code scanning, detection, and generation of recommended patches. So on the benchmark, it has 92% success in detecting patches. And it is it creates like a I mean, especially for startup companies and then companies that are like smaller, teams, small teams. I think this is going to be it's going to be a game changer for them. So, sort of like a way to, you know, um, to stay ahead of security issues on their products, right? Yeah. So I think it's a very interesting one. And
Yeah,
then
and
this is also interesting
it's a
because it's the launch of
classic transition,
GPT-5.
right? Mm. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean,
GPT-5. What?
GPT-5 launched, and then people are already building things on top of it, and then we are seeing a lot of interesting products like this coming up and being built on top of GPT-5.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a very common next transition, right? I mean, there is again lots of concern about I mean, there is a likely the higher chances that AI generated code is going to have lots of security vulnerability compared to human written code. So, and the industry is heading towards more AI generated code. So this is a really interesting problem that we have to solve, obviously, and then they're building a tool set on that. I mean, they're not the only one. There are lots of companies out there trying to do that. Now, you thought
Yeah.
GPT-5 is cool. What about GPT 5.1? So the OpenAI is sort of testing this model out. So what they typically do is that they list some of these models in OpenRouter with different aliases and have people to try them out. So there is I think the alias for this one is called Polaris Alpha. So, but some of the
Yeah.
literature out there and leaks suggest that GPT 5.1 is coming and GPT 5.1 reasoning, GPT 5.1 Pro. I don't like how
Yeah.
they are splitting reasoning out of this. Anyway, so these are some of the new models are supposed to come out by end of November or November 24. Yeah, end of this month.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is a much bigger, better, interesting, shiny new model. The same stuff I see in every other model releases. This is actually doing better. But one thing is sort of making it very clear that I think before OpenAI is to switch the models behind the scene as they're doing
Yeah.
upgrade. But right now they're making very incremental releases. So like a very like a incremental releases. I think that one of the reasons for that is because lots of enterprises like to work with the specific versions. They don't like if the software upgrades happens behind the scene. Does that make sense? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so, um, so enterprise, along with that, enterprise customers now have an ability to opt out. So you don't suddenly get an upgraded version. So you can say, don't push me experimental upgrades on my model. So if I'm building my solution for GPT-5, I'm going to continue to use GPT-5. And I'll use a
Yeah.
separate upgrade path to go to GPT 5.1. It doesn't happen automatically. So that gives more businesses more sort of locked down versions.
Yeah.
Um, but this is a good way to kind of think of that. My notes says that this 5.1 is doing really, really good. It's better at reasoning, better at thinking, and all that good stuff.
All right. All right. So this other news is from R, right? I was trying to like get the full details, but wasn't able to get. I was trying to know if I can track the guy that they said launched this on social media, but I wasn't able to. So you know how the whole AI, most of the AI agentic ecosystem has been mostly built around Python, right? So this guy called Hadley Wickham reveals a new extension of tiny models that bring seamless AI LLM integration,
Mhm.
effectively bridging agentic workflows, auto EDA, and LLM powered modeling into tidyverse world. So these levels are more directly with Python, skittilearn plus LangChain stack. Now, the interesting thing here is the fact that R is becoming more, the R ecosystem is changing, and then they are launching these things that can help them, you know, build more AI on top of R. And then I've also seen a lot of hype in the R ecosystem where people are saying, "Oh, don't learn Python, learn R because R is better, R is efficient," and the
Now,
rest of those things.
Now,
So
there is to be a challenge in the industry. I mean, obviously, not aware of that. I'm not part of that process now, so I don't know. Someone in our audience should correct this. Um, Back in days, there used to be a huge problem where lots of data scientists and machine learning practitioners uses R. R
yeah,
has a very higher abstraction to when they're modeling something. Like this is pre-LLM. Now I don't know
yeah,
after
yeah,
post-LLM
yeah,
how many people are writing, creating their own model. They're probably fine-tuning it. But before, there was a days kids where kids. Once upon a time, there was a time where people were building their own models. Uh,
yeah,
when they used to do that, they used to use R for that. But the R
yeah.
is great for building model, but not great for building scalable production software. So there used to be this
Oh,
challenge of hey, here is a model in R, go productionize it. Then bunch of data
Oh,
engineers gonna come in, like you and me, engineers come in, who needs to
yeah,
understand the R and
yeah.
translate that to Python
Oh,
to
I
build a much
see.
scalable solution and deploy in the production. Obviously, that translation was
Oh, I
always
see.
tricky one, right? Going from R to Python,
Yeah.
because you have to translate all that. There was always that used to be a huge bottleneck in for data science teams. So I'm kind of curious
Wow.
what that interface sort of looks like now. If anybody knows, please share your experience with us. We'll be happy to bring you to your podcast also to share that. But that is to be so.
Yeah.
Going back, art is doing something to kind of scale is interesting because used to be a big problem back in this.
Yeah. I think it's nice that they're doing it now. It's nice. And it's very,
Yeah.
very important that they're doing it now. Right? Yeah. Makes a lot of sense.
Well,
All right.
with GPT 5.1, Google said, wait a minute, we can do better than GPT 5.1. So Google is releasing Gemini 3 Pro. I don't know whether you have the story. I have this too. Maybe we can tag team. The
Right. Yeah.
one interesting thing about this model release is it's going to have a 1 million token context window.
Wow. That's 1 million to good on.
That's big though, because right now,
That's big.
I think GPT 5.1 is at 256,000, I think.
256,000. Yeah, I think something of that
256K
nature.
context window or something. So
Yeah.
Google said, wait a minute, we can do better than that. And Google said, we will do 1 million
Wow.
tokens. um, so that's coming again later this month.
Yeah. I mean, it's the competition, right? It's the competition. So you release something, but everybody's trying to. But I listen to a lot of researchers, right? I listen to a lot of researchers on YouTube, and then most of them I've listened to researchers that have worked at Meta, Google, and OpenAI, right? And everybody keeps talking about Google DeepMind and how good they are in the DeepMind department of Google, and then how they are very good and the kind of things that they are doing. And I think I, all the guys I've listened to always tend to Google. I mean, they always say, "Oh," but we the users, I personally, I think OpenAI is better, but the guys working behind are
I don't
saying,
know. I mean, it depends now. I feel like,
"Yeah,
I mean, I've started using Gemini. Gemini is doing pretty good. It's going back to this idea of this what we talked about last week about the GitHub the HQ agent HQ, right? I
yeah,
think the smarter thing to do would be is to I think your superpower is going to be is that if you know which model is good at what and sort of
yeah,
chaining them together. I mean, this is not either or, it's all or nothing,
yeah,
right? That's not that, right?
yeah,
Everybody can win. We just have to figure
yeah,
out what model makes sense for what use case for you. So you get best out of
exactly,
this. Uh,
exactly, yeah,
1 million doesn't excite me that much. It will excite me if once it gets out and I start playing with it and it make me sure that it doesn't get the middle doesn't get lost, right? This is a classic problem with
yeah,
LLM used to have the problem. I don't know, they probably have solved it right now, right? The
yeah,
LLMs used to tend to remember stuff at the beginning and stuff at the end, and they tend to forget stuff in the
yeah.
middle.
The in between
So,
text,
in
yeah,
between,
yeah,
right? So if you have a 1 million token context window, large context window, that's wonderful for lots of stuff, right? Multimodal audio, video, right? You're doing analysis on video, audio, take lots of tokens. So it makes a
yeah,
lot of sense for we talked about this. Eventually, you're going to get a large context window, but we need to get to the
yeah,
point where can this model remember all the stuff in the context? If it does, then it's going to be game changer.
yeah,
This is
yeah,
Google
yeah.
Gemini 3 will be the winner. I mean, no matter what happens, right? This is going to change because context is everything.
Oh, hmm.
So one
All
one
right.
thing I want to add here, though, right? They are unifying something which I thought was interesting. I know Nano Banana was a craze a couple of weeks back. I don't know what's happening now, but Nano Banana 2 is coming, and that's going to be running on Gemini 3 Pro. So what they're also doing along with this release is they're sort of aggregating all this under one model, which will help Google to sort of manage all this scale. So that's interesting.
Oh, all right. That's really interesting. The evolution is really very interesting. All right. So I think I saw this news. I peeped into your notes. I saw this news that you have it also. It's called Google Labs made Opal globally available, right? So
Mm.
before today, before this morning, I've not heard of Opal before, right? I'm hearing for the first time today. I don't know why I've not seen it before now. I guess
We
maybe
covered it
because
though. We covered it before.
yeah, we did.
Long
Oh,
back. Long
so
back, yeah.
I was trying to understand it. I was watching their demo videos because they said it's globally available, but I don't know, for some reason it's not available to me, right? So um I tried looking it up. It was giving me, it was looking as if it's, what's it called? You know how anything creates like workflows for you, right? Because the examples they were giving were sort of the examples we were looking for. Oh, I want
It's
you
like a
to write
workflow
this work
engine.
for me. Yeah, it looks like a workflow engine, but then they keep saying apps, right? And I'm sort of like confused. So you're saying apps, but then the videos and the demos I'm watching is showing me workflow engine,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
it is prompt to workflow.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
So, if yeah, prompt to workflow. Yeah, you're right. I remember.
it's
I was
prompt
not,
to workflow. Yeah, go on.
I'm sure. I'm sure this is a better version. I don't like saying negative things. Uh, but first time when I played with it for this, I was not that impressed. It felt like the same prompt to app that
Every
Perplexity
other
have.
person
There are a
is
bunch.
doing.
Every other Perplexity also have something called apps now. Uh, I think these are good for. I think this apps will perform really good if you're doing something on Google Assets, like get stuff from my Google Drive. Find
Yeah.
so it'll be interesting to build an Opal Opal workflow to say go through all the podcast notes that we have done for last 30 weeks and
Mm.
figure out how many OpenAI stories we covered versus how many Google stories, something like that.
Oh,
Uh,
oh, nice,
that
nice.
could be an interesting way to play with this, maybe. Um,
All
so
right. I think
I
that's
have a
about the
very
last story I have. Yeah. So
can I go in?
yeah, you can. You can.
Okay. This is the one I probably can consider a quote unquote main story. This is an I thought was fascinating. So this is a research from MIT called Legible Software.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so the idea is sort of a blueprint to figure out for human-readable AI-writable code. Okay, which I thought was interesting because traditionally programming languages have been designed so far for humans to write,
Yeah.
for people like us, right? We will learn that we used to learn about
Yeah.
programming language, the abstraction layer, type system, and all that, and I do that. And there
Yeah.
is always this argument that you hear over and over again. Maybe we need to design a new programming language for LLMs that LLMs
LLM.
will be comfortable using, right? But then the
Okay.
argument there is always an argument that says, okay, wonderful, great, but how are you going to train LLM on that language? Because there is no code example on that language. The
Yeah.
way LLM learns about Python is because it has mined all the GitHub Python projects, for an example, right? It knows how we write. Since we write such a horrible code, now LLM writes horrible code. It's like a karma. So we give bad examples to LLM. Now LLM is a bad example to write bad code. Now, and jokes apart. So what they have figured. So it's always that argument, like maybe there is a better way. What programming language makes sense for LLM? I made a post on LinkedIn about this. I argue that statically typed language is going to be best for LLMs. I personally think
So
because
yeah,
type system.
why do you say that? Because I saw that post on LinkedIn also.
So I feel like because type system put constraints, right? When you define something that this function returns foo, and foo is shaped like this, foo is going to have this color, this edges, is going to be square shaped, whatever that properties are. That
Yeah.
that enforces LLM to think like that. Types gives you a way to think about objects that you work with, right? Whether it's dynamically typed saying, hey, this just returns a dictionary. A dictionary could contain anything in it, becomes very hard for LLM to reason about. Does that make sense? Then,
Yeah.
then you have type systems allows you to rely on tools like compilers, which will detect type mismatch that can provide feedback to LLMs to write better code. So there is an interesting feedback loop that LLM can use. Most of this model needs a feedback loop to validate that whether the code that I'm generating works or not. So if you have to ask me, I feel like programming language like Scala, the best language in the world, Scala,
Yeah.
Haskell, or Java will slowly become very popular because those languages have a very enforced type systems, and developers are used to
Hmm.
write types, and types will force them to write better code. If you have a language that doesn't allow
Oh.
mutability, LLM will be forced to write immutable code, which will force to relatively write better code. It's hard to write bad code in Scala, in my opinion. You have to be really, really expert to write bad code in Scala.
Oh.
Yes, because
Yeah.
language is designed such a way. Now, what these researchers have figured out is they were not specific about type system. They actually went into more higher abstraction, which I thought was beautiful, like how we should be architecting software. So what
Yeah.
this researchers are saying, forget about languages. Maybe we should think about different way we should architect our softwares that will be better for LLM to write and better for humans to
Yeah.
read. Because that's
Hmm.
the end goal. If we get there, then that's it. That's the end game. This is what we're going
Yeah.
for. Everyone is going for this route. So they came up
Yeah.
with this new concept. So I'm going to share. I will encourage everybody to read this paper. This is fascinating stuff. So they shared this concept. They shared a couple of ideas. One is called concept. It's almost like React components. What they said is that instead of having front end, back end, middleware all separated in various files and layers, they're saying all needs
Yeah.
to be part of like a one component called concept, a small independent module that exactly does one job.
Hmm.
Okay, so if you're handling authentication, if handling a like, all the functionality needs to be embedded in that, which makes sense from LLM perspective that way. Then when LLM is looking at that code, LLM has all the moving parts in the one place. LLM usually struggles when you have a front end on a different project and back end on another project. Then there is a
Yeah.
huge this context switch that LLM has to go through to figure it out that for this change, this side of the code is affected, right? I have to make the change. This is hard. That's why most of this LLM struggle. So instead of
Hmm.
doing that, what if we bring all the related parts into one place? Another thing is called synchronization. That means when this happens, we need to change color of this object to blue. I'm just giving an example in here. So
Yeah.
that information needs to be encoded somewhere. Like
Yeah.
when I add something, when I say add to cart, when I click that button, the cart object needs to be incremented by 1 because there is a new item in the cart. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
There's a two
Yes.
different components, right? If you talk about AWS and Amazon managing cart is a whole different team
Yeah.
versus the guys who write the product page.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
that is sort of an implicit. So the event will get fired, someone will capture the event and I do that. I know I'm going bit details. So they provided a DSL, sort of synchronization mechanism that explicitly states when component A is updated, component B needs to be modified. So
Oh.
that gives an additional context to LLM saying, okay, these two objects are related. So when I make changes here, something else should happen here.
Needs to happen here. Yeah. So, but
So it's
this is the same agent, but just handling these things differently.
No, this is not an agent.
So
This is
it's
this
the
is
language
this is asking us to how we should design our software.
design our software. Okay. Okay.
So for an example, we typically use MVC, right? Model View
Yeah.
Controller Architecture,
Model
where
view
model
controller.
UI and controller is different. So, but that the problem is the logic is somewhere, state is somewhere, right?
Yeah.
That means LLM have to touch multiple files to do this. What
Yeah.
concept says is that no, you should be bundling everything. The UI, backend, front end, all should be coming together in one place.
Yeah.
No leaking between the layers. So microservices, on the other hand, is another popular architecture that we use, right? Each service owns its own domain, communications, and all that.
Yeah.
But there is a problem that each services talk to each other, and that conversation, that interaction is sort of implicit. It's not defined very well anywhere.
Yeah.
We sort of know as a tribal knowledge, oh, this model is to, this service should call that service to get that service done and all that. With concepts and
Yeah.
synchronization here, oh, you're explicitly defining that communication layer. The service A calls
Yeah.
service B. So it's some sort of a layer on top of our existing software architecture, essentially.
Oh, wow. That makes a lot of sense. I think
This,
that's
I mean, at
like
least
a
someone
design
is thinking
principle.
out of the box doing this. I do see a bunch of problems with this, but uh,
Yeah.
but I know that this is some of the stuff we have to think about, because this is not scalable. I mean, we can, there's one right now in the industry, we have like two sort of point of views. One point of view is like group like us, like I'm embraced AI
Yeah.
generated code. I'm living and breathing it. I've spent unhealthy amount of time in cloud doing that, because I know that there's this 10x my productivity, right?
Yeah.
On the other hand, there is obviously lots of hesitant and pushback on this. This sucks, which is also true, right? And there's lots of cases this LLM sucks. I just keep that in mind as I walk through this. But this forces us in the industry that we have to start thinking differently about software design. I mean, the stuff that we used to do 5 years back is not applicable anymore. We have to think differently. And I
Yeah. We
think this
have
is
to.
an example of that.
Yeah. Right. I think that has been an interesting
Sorry, I took long. I
conversation.
got very passionate about this, but this is a very interesting
Yeah.
stuff.
It's been a very interesting conversation today. And yeah, I'm really excited about this. I'm going to look up these papers, most especially because, I mean, it's like a very interesting concept. So I want to give a big shout out to everyone that joined us live today. I can see more than 40 people actually joined on Twitter. Yeah, big shout out to all of you. And we have about 3 people on LinkedIn. Big shout out to you guys too. And then on YouTube, I think we have other people also joined on YouTube, which is like a primary platform. So thank you very much. Harris, I can see you in the chat. Thank you for dropping a chat. Always, yeah. And then
He's
yeah,
always there. Thanks, Aris.
always there. Yeah, thanks, Harris. So thank you very much, everyone.